Welcome to Your Number Man, the podcast where we dive deep into business, finance, and entrepreneurship. I am your host, Johan, but you can call me Your Number Man. Over the years, I've worn many hats in the business world, from marketing ace to financial expert. And now I'm here to share my expertise with you. Each week, we'll explore strategies, insights, and stories to help you navigate the complexities of running a successful business. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting, this podcast is your go-to resource for all things business and finance. So grab a drink, settle in, and let's unlock the secrets to building and thriving business together. This is Your Number Man, where we help you achieve a bigger life in business. So today we have another kick-ass guest here on our fantastic podcast. He's an entrepreneur par excellence, an NLP coach, and the founder and owner of Browns Barossa Donuts. His name is David Brown. Today, David will share his expertise in entrepreneurship, personal development, and how to navigate life challenges with resilience and optimism. Now, his diverse experiences and unique perspectives will definitely inspire and empower us to embrace our own journeys with courage and truth. It's actually quite funny. At one stage, we were neighbours, we're good mates now, and here you are, David, on my podcast.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Johan, and two very different journeys, but wound up in this room, which is fantastic. We were neighbours, so we're not anymore, but we are definitely good friends.
Yeah, we're still boys from the hood, man.
We are, definitely. The things we'll probably go into today with things that we had conversations about that hadn't manifested at that point.
Probably going to be an easy day for you because you don't have a problem with a microphone. You've been on radio talk show in Melbourne. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Look, in high school, I didn't know how to really concentrate on one thing very, very much. Probably undiagnosed ADD. The best subject at school for me was drama because I didn't have to sit still.
Yeah.
And I remember having a chat with my careers teacher, She was like, what are you going to do? And I said, I have no idea. And she said, maybe you should get into something to do with dramatic arts.
Yes.
And so I'd love making people laugh, and I thought comedy was the way to go. And I actually started doing some acting on TV and stuff like that, but it was the workflow wasn't very consistent. So someone else suggested, why don't you get into radio? So I knocked on the door of a station in Melbourne, and I got a job as one of, the cars that go around and they give away free stuff. They give away big M's or whatever, farmers unions or stuff like that. So I'd be like, hey, come meet me down here and you can get this and get that and quick. I started off doing that, just worked my way up very quickly, and I ended up hosting breakfast radio show for a couple of years. Yeah, it was great fun.
Great fun, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, that's nice. Well, I also had my spiel with a bit of a radio, but it's not behind a microphone. I was a treasurer of our local community radio, the Barossa FM radio show at some stage. So that's where my radio experience started and stopped. Well, I'm back behind a microphone.
You are. Yeah.
And,
this is related. It's like its cousin, right?
Yeah. It's probably always been my bit of a bucket on my bucket list to start a podcast, and here I am. Always been a little bit afraid, but people told me, hey, you got a face for radio.
You definitely do have a face for radio, Johan, 100%.
Oh, thanks, Dave. Thanks, Dave.
So do I, by the way.
No, you've got a nice lock of hair then, anyway. You've always been quite entrepreneurial in your life. And in your younger days specifically, you told me about some stuff that you've done in school. And
the word entrepreneur is hard to pronounce. It's hard to spell. And it's definitely something that I didn't even know about when I was a kid. And yet, later in life, when I came to learn the definition of entrepreneur and then reflected, I was like, oh my gosh, that's me, 100 million %. That's what I was doing when I was a kid. So, for example, when I was about 11 or 12 years old, I lived in country Victoria, and about 4 kilometres away, there was a golf course.
Yes.
And I was playing under 13s football. So we were the dew kickers. We were the first ones on the ground. Set my alarm at 5 a.m. I'd ride my bike down to the golf course.
Yes.
And I would in the freezing cold water, I'd get into the dams and I'd find golf balls with my feet. I would then get those golf balls and I'd wash them. The golfers that were teeing off at like 6 in the morning would then buy my golf balls. I'd make $50 to $100 every Saturday morning, then go ride my bike and play football.
$50 on a Saturday morning.
As a 10-year, 11-year-old, yeah. And my family didn't have much money, so
Yeah.
that sort of thing appealed to me because I could buy my own stuff. I was quite independent very young. I quickly figured out that I wasn't going to get the things that I felt like that I needed at the time, clothes and buying pies at the shop or whatever, all those things. I just wasn't going to get them from my parents. So I figured out ways to get money. I collected worms in jars and I would sell them to old people, find all the people that looked after their garden, and I would go knock on the door and sell jars of worms for $5. Or I could buy cigarettes really easily and I'd go sell those cigarettes at school.
To the students or the teachers?
Never a teacher. It was kind of the last hurrah for people that smoked, really. I did sell them to kids and my age, like just my peers. And I had people working for me too. I had like 3 or 4 people that would sell cigarettes on my behalf. So I didn't actually have to sell them in the end. So, and I only did that so I wouldn't get in trouble. So if they ever got caught, it wasn't me. I would just deny it. But I made lots and lots of money doing that.
Geez, man, you could have run around in a big black car using a lot of bling and, do something else illegal with that kind of.
Oh, look, it was just, I didn't see it like as in legal or illegal. I just saw it as a means to an end. I just saw it an opportunity. And as I got older, I got kind of conformed in the system that you have to get a job and you have to study and you have to do these things. And I did those things, but I always felt uncomfortable doing them. And it wasn't until I burst out of that cocoon later on and started doing my own thing again that I actually felt alive. So when I reflected back on my childhood, I'm like, oh, all those things I used to do. And then I figured out the word entrepreneur and then the definition and the meaning. I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. I find that for me, what it means is how I get my energy and how I can express myself. And I don't like that if there's a hierarchy or a pedestal that some entrepreneurs put themselves on. You're not better if you are an entrepreneur. And you're not better if you work for someone in a structure. It's just how you get your energy and how you're fulfilled. Life is a recipe of many ingredients. The end result for most, well, nearly everybody is a cake. Let's just call it a cake.
Let's call it a donut.
Let's call it a donut.
Big donut.
A donut. We'll get to that.
But a Browns donut.
Yeah. It's just what ingredients go into that. And if you had experiences in your life that are salty, then you might put too much salt into that cake and it won't be a good cake. So it's like recognizing the salt, which is a metaphor, I guess, for pain. Let's just call it fear. And that fear will prevent you from making a good cake if you don't go back and reduce that amount that you put into the recipe.
You're making this perfect donut, but you don't want to put too much sugar in it and don't want to put too much salt. You've got to find that right balance at work.
Yeah, and the sugar and salt are representatives of your past.
Yes.
Pretty much, or your projection of your future. It's like, how are you going to harness your past experiences and influences your environment, all those things, to produce something fruitful for you now and in the future?
Yeah, obviously we want to talk about donut business, but obviously you've done a lot. You've to study NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, am I right?
Neuro-linguistic program, yes.
Yeah, and you specialize in timeline therapy and neurotransformation therapy, which is quite a mouthful. Do you mind explaining how you use this to get people to unlock their full potential and achieve their goals?
I'll speak to my journey a little bit, and hopefully it explains a bit more about what you're asking. Around the time that I was stuck in a job and that I didn't like, I had some past childhood traumas that I hadn't dealt with. And there's a lot of good stuff in my life. There was some things happening that were lots of good stuff, actually. But my mind was focused on the negative because it was producing a lot of pain for me. So I went searching for answers. I'd seen what happens if you don't do that firsthand. And I didn't want to disintegrate into that state. So I went looking and I found some really good people that were helping people better themselves. One of those people was Tony Robbins. He's an international mindset coach, speaker, healer, practical psychologist. He's all the things. And I remember watching a clip, such a moving clip for me, that I was like, okay, this guy has unlocked something in me and I need to figure out what that is. So I went through a whole process of figuring stuff out. And I was like, what did this guy hear? What did he learn to know that? How did he know to say that? How did he know that that would unlock the stuff for me? And I figured out that he was one of the first things he studied was neuro-linguistic programming, which is basically analyzing your language. It almost sounds like a computer term, but it's basically our language and our behaviors and how those form patterns, and that's how you carry yourself in life. And basically those patterns of behavior most of the time you've just adopted from your environment or your peers or people around you, and hardly any of them are yours, and they form beliefs and you defend these beliefs. And so I got into that and I was like, okay, I'm going to study that because I would like to help people with that. And then that led to timeline therapy. Imagine your timeline in your life and where there are things that happened and you can go back to those things and sort them out.
Yeah.
And neurotransformation therapy is just another extension of those things. I've seen it firsthand work for myself. I've seen it work with other people around me. Find the thing that's your thing that's going to help.
Yes, food for thought. Well, it's a numbers show, so we'll have to talk numbers, but let's talk about the donuts and then the numbers behind the donuts as well. My understanding is, Rachel, your beautiful wife, and you embarked on a venture to start Browns Barossa Donuts back in 2018. I can still remember we were neighbours at that stage, so you worked hard every night in your shed. I was also working in my shed. I always heard you at night playing your nice music there in your shed, having a good time, but you're working hard. Something specifically that I remember, and one of those memories that really stuck in my head. One Saturday morning, I was in the garden working, and again, I heard your raw, authentic 90s music next door, and then the smell of this amazing aroma just made a way over to my back lawn. And I just really felt happy, and I felt happy for you because I know you're busy creating something very amazing on the other side of the fence. Anyway, tell us a bit more about his business and how you started and where you are today.
Yeah, firstly, to clarify, we have a big shed at home and didn't need most of it. So when I first moved into this house, it's actually in Melbourne where donuts started. And I can briefly go into that if you like. But
yes, please.
We moved into a house in Melbourne. We were renting, my wife and I, Rach, and there was unusually a large deep fryer that was a part of this kitchen of this house. And everything about the house is amazing, but that was unusual. And it didn't stop us from renting it, but it did throw around a question of what are we going to do with a deep fryer like that? And to me, I was just like, well, what aren't we going to do with it? Like, let's deep fry everything, let's try to deep fry everything. And it was just coincidentally, we were back for Christmas in the Barossa Valley where we have our donut shop now and where we live now. For some reason, I was just fed up with food and the way it was heading, the mass-produced, really quickly made without real ingredients. Because I grew up in a country town where the local bakery used to make custard from scratch. And
what town was it?
In Gippsland, it was a town called Bunyip. And the local bakery, I would just remember, and with the money I was getting from selling golf balls and cigarettes and stuff like that, go to the bakery, and especially his vanilla slices and his donuts were just amazing.
Yeah.
And I just remember those. And when you have something like that in your mind, and you're older, you just go searching for it. And I just couldn't find it anywhere. And I thought, if I'm going to find it somewhere, it's going to be in another country town in the Barossa. So I went to the bakeries there and I just was not happy with it. And we went back to Melbourne and I said, I'm going to make the best donut like I had when I was a kid. And at that time I was running another business, I had a construction company. I had to get up pretty early for that. Trade work, you're usually on site. It's like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. So I'd get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I would make dough and make donuts, and I failed like at least 200 times. I have a diary where I have adjustments to my dough, and it's at least 200 pages long, and I reckon there's more. There was a lot of holes in our backyard where we would dig and bury dough just to get rid of it, because sometimes you put dough in the bin and the yeast makes it overflow and the lid's hanging out because there's so much dough in there.
So you kept on trying with the donuts, but each time you wrote down, what did you do? What might you have done wrong?
Yeah, of course. I had a base recipe and I just couldn't execute. So I just kept adjusting the recipe over and over and over again until I got it right. And I quickly worked out that baking is incredibly difficult. It's a science. There is a lot of moving parts. You're relying on ingredients that are grown. They're real life ingredients. Like wheat is different based on the season it's had. If it's had a very wet season, then you're going to get less protein in the flour, which makes the flour not as strong, which means that you're going to have to adjust proofing time and the temperatures and the mixing time to strengthen it. It's a lot. There's a lot going on. And you don't know that at the start. So hence the method and the recipe, simultaneously you're adjusting those things. And you can't adjust more than one thing at a time. Otherwise you don't know what's worked. So it's like every time that you fail at something, you have to adjust one little piece.
Yeah.
And that's process, by the way. So you implement process into anything, you're always adding and deleting in process, always. So anyway, I just got moving on that. We'd made a decision to buy a house and move to the Barossa. And I said to Rach when we get there, let's start a market stall, because I'd become really good at making donuts, and I was handing them out at our church and at social gatherings, and liking them that much that they were asking me to make them for weddings and birthday parties and events. Obviously, I didn't commit because we were moving, but when we got to the Barossa, I said, let's get a farmer's stall going. And I was making them at that point in our kitchen in our house. And I was like, this isn't going to work, a very basic kitchen. So, it's like, okay, I'm going to build a room in our shed. So I made this room and I got all the things and I bought all this equipment and I bought a big dough mixer and I bought a proofer, which is something that rises dough. I got some fryers and all the things, and I made it an outdoor kitchen. That's what you would have been smelling coming over your backyard. So then we took those to market, and we got the response that we did.
Great. Yeah, I remember at the market, Kerry was also there selling her teas. You were sold out by 10 o'clock in the morning.
It's amazing. Word gets out. And I guess that I hark back to the experience that I had when I was a kid, right?
Yeah.
When I bought that donut from my local bakery, and I just remembered it, how good it was. People were buying our product because of how good it was. They were telling their friends, and a couple of months in, we had a queue lining up to get donuts, which was a really good response.
Yeah, and it's still like that. I mean,
it is.
In the Barossa, I mean, if you want to be there, you got to be early. Donuts going to get sold out. Yeah,
we have a high demand for our donut, and we make them in limited batches because of the way we do it.
And you won an award last year.
Yeah. I mean, look, since then, I'll continue on with a bit of a biography for our donuts. Since then, we progressed into a store that is a pop-up store. So it was a bit of an experiment. And that's what I think, if I can emphasize this point, a lot of people get an idea. They assume that their passion and their love for that idea or that product or the service or whatever the thing is going to be replicated with everyone. And everyone's going to love it as much as them. And they're going to want to have it as much as they want it. So based on that assumption, some big decisions are made. Those big decisions could be like, okay, let's say I'm going to sell watches. I've got these bright pink watches, and I love bright pink watches, and I assume everybody else does. So I'm going to open up a shop that sells bright pink watches. And I just do that. And I spend $80,000 on rent and a fit out and all the things, and get staff and get all the packaging and get all the watches in. I open my doors. And nobody turns up because you've assumed everybody loves pink watches because you love pink watches.
Yeah.
And I assumed that my donuts were good, and I tested them slightly, but I wasn't confident that everybody was going to like donuts as much as I like donuts.
Yeah.
To have a shop dedicated to just donuts. Crazy, right? So I thought, instead of that, I'm going to persevere. I got it out of a book actually called The Lean Startup. It's a very intellectual book, but the main theme that I got was to test your product. When you test your product, you find roadblocks or obstacles, and that makes you either pivot in a different direction, or if you're successful, you keep persevering to the next step. So we went from farmer's market, and we didn't go straight to shop, because that was too big of a leap and I had to test more. So we went to a pop-up shop. So instead of being available to the public one morning every fortnight for 3 hours at a market, we were then available for 2 days a week, every week from a pop-up location. And that worked incredibly well. We sold out every single day, and we had pre-order online. So then we built on that and said, okay, if we're going to have a shop, let's open it for 3.5 days, nearly 4 days. So let's double it. And we tested it then, and it has worked. And our standard, by the way, is outstanding. A lot of people say, oh, it's perfection. Perfection is a fool's paradise. You never achieve anything with perfection. Only thing you ever achieve is frustration, right? Yeah. So is our donut good? No. Are our donuts great? No. Are they excellent? No. Are they outstanding? Absolutely. Why? Because we make sure that they're outstanding at that standard before we even put them in the cabinet. We had a editor from Delicious magazine give us a call and said, your donuts have come across my desk and they are fantastic, and we want to put you in the running for the best donuts in South Australia, or the best treats, actually. It was a category of treats. Yeah, we ended up winning that category.
You won.
Yeah, and we are the number one donuts in South Australia and part of the Delicious 100,
Yeah, well, I think it could be Australia, actually. After tasting that bloody donut.
I'm biased. I think the same. And I've tried a lot of donuts. But, yeah, I mean, food is so subjective. So it's up to the person eating it, I guess.
Yes. When I met you, you were always talking about how you love NFL football, which is American football. There's a lot of strategy involved. There's a lot of analytics going on. They've got this whole panel of people analyzing things, and they know when to put a new player when other one comes off. And one guy is good for running, other one's good for throwing, other one's good for kicking. So there's a lot of analyzing in sport as well. I'm a rugby man, so that's the helmetless version. Right. Obviously South African, so I'm sticking to my Springboks, and we've won the World Cup last year. I'm very proud of it.
Congratulations.
Thanks, mate. Thanks. And that wouldn't not have happened. I mean, it's a great team, but that coaches were always on one step ahead of the competitors, analyzed every game. They were vibrant, they were creative, and they obviously sealed the trophy for South Africa. Now, my point is, business, as in sport, is just as important to analyze and being on top of your competition the whole time. And what is analyzing? Analyzing is numbers. It's a numbers game where numbers are the language of business. What is your feeling around analyzing and always staying ahead of your competitors?
Yeah, look, very good question. Numbers matter a lot and they influence you a lot. In business, there's many hats you wear. You're naturally going to be innately good at some of them, and some of them you're not going to be as good at that you would like to be. But a lot of it comes down to numbers. So using the metaphor for NFL football, which I love, by the way, the Cleveland Browns are my team because my last name is Brown, and I was searching for a team. I'm actually a Bombers supporter in the AFL, and Essendon had a drug scandal at the time. And I was looking for a new sport just to refresh my mind, and I found NFL and I found Cleveland Browns because of my last name, and it turns out they're one of the struggling teams of the NFL. Yeah. But I really loved the sport, and as you said, it's segmented into defense, offense, and there's people that are preventing other people from getting to the quarterback so he can make decisions, and everybody's got a role, and it's so calculated. It's a numbers game. What is the percentage of this? What is the percentage of that? And I guess that appeals to me, and how that translates into business. We have a lot of goals and a lot of outcomes we want to achieve. And not that it's the most important thing, it definitely isn't, but achieving those numbers like financial goals or goals of output in terms of quantity of product or running profit on profit year on year, those sorts of things, they're incredibly important. And it's surprising how many people in business don't do the numbers.
Oh, it is.
It's crazy.
It's right. Yeah. Every day I say, where's your budget? I don't know. We've never done a budget. Or, where's your gross profit? Oh, no. At the bottom line. I say, well, don't you categorize it?
It's hard, right? Because you're wearing all the hats, and it's so easily, especially when your business is small to intermediate, numbers is like the thing that you sit down with at night. Yeah. And let's face it, numbers can, to some people, be very tedious and boring and all those things, but they mean so much.
Yes.
And look, I'm guilty of it too. Like the 16, 17-hour days for a couple of years will wear you down. And when you're in the business wearing the hats and doing all the things, and then you go home to crunch some numbers, it quickly gets put to the side, and then a couple of months have gone by and you're like, oh my gosh, where are we at with our profit? Where are we at with our growth? Where are we at with all our financials and our costings and all those things? It's good to have a good system though.
It is. Yeah, like you say, it's a business to be successful. A business got so much permutations and variations. You've got to think about the market, your product, your marketing, having the right team, like you say, the systems. So it is hard sometimes to strain away from the numbers. We're still looking for that answer sometimes. How do you bring it back? Because it is the most important, one of the most important things in your business.
Yeah, like knowing how much a product costs before you sell it. Like the ingredients, all the overheads, all piled into that product. What does that cost? And the amount of people have, not that I want to know what their item costs. I'm not interested in how much money they're making. That doesn't bother me. Make as much money as you feel you need to, whatever. That's not the thing. The thing is knowing how much you are going to make or how much it is costing you, because that determines so much.
Yes.
And if you don't know that, and you're scratching your head wondering why you haven't got any money in the bank and you don't know that, then that's probably the first step to rectifying that.
It's a roadmap. You work out your GP, you work out where you're going, and you forecast in your budget.
I'm glad you said that, because with numbers, you can form goals.
Yes.
Right? And some of them, they have to be audacious, right? Why not? Why not?
Yeah.
Why restrict yourself? And the thing is, with the way your mind works, is that it tries desperately to help you achieve the thing that you tell it to achieve. It is literally like a genie waiting for you to make a wish.
Yes.
And it will say, your wish is my command, and it will go to work for you to achieve those things. And what do I mean? I'll use a metaphor, actually. Let's say you're driving home from work and you've had a big day and you're hyper-focused on work, and your partner has said to you that morning, you're on dinner tonight, you're going to make dinner. And you're driving home and that thought comes to you like, oh my gosh, I haven't thought about dinner. I don't know what I'm going to cook. You're 20 minutes from home and you're like, oh gosh, I'm going to get my butt whipped if I don't have dinner ready, right? So you say to yourself, okay, what am I going to do for dinner? That's a question.
Yeah.
And you are asking yourself, and your mind goes, question. And within 10 seconds, it has a suggestion for you. It has, hey, let's do something that's quick and easy, spaghetti bolognese. And then you quickly respond, oh no, we had that the other day. Can't have that. Is there something we can defrost in the fridge? Is there a leftover? Within a minute, you'll come to a conclusion and you'll go, okay, let's have some steak and some vegetables. I need to get some vegetables. I'll stop at the shop on the way home. Sorted. Right.
Yes.
Done. So you're interacting with your mind, and your mind is at your beckoning call. So when you set a goal, like a numbers goal, and you tell your mind to do that, it goes to work when you sleep. And it will throw suggestions at you to get to that goal. So let's say you have a goal of, I want to sell 100,000 units of this thing this year, right?
Yep.
And you make that and you mark it and you ingrain it into your psyche. Your mind will look for ways for that goal to be achieved.
Yeah.
It's a GPS for it. You might be sitting at a cafe a couple of days later after setting that 100,000 unit goal.
Yes.
And 3 tables over, there's someone talking about something associated with that 100,000 unit goal. You would never have heard that conversation unless you told your mind to go looking for it, and it's always searching for it. So it will tune in and go, hey, that guy over there is talking about the thing, right?
Yeah.
You should listen to that, or go and ask that person a question, or make a network, or whatever.
Yes.
So it's always trying to get you to the goal. So that's why it's so important to know your numbers,
Yes.
have a goal, set it into your psyche, and suggest, just like you say, hey, what are we going to have for dinner? Hey, how am I going to get that goal? And it'll keep suggesting until you find the way.
Yeah.
Does every suggestion work? No, but it gets you closer and closer. That pivot and persevere, pivot and persevere. It will work eventually.
Yeah, because that question probably goes into your subconscious. Every now and again, it like finds an answer for that matter.
Well, it's programmed.
Yeah.
So let's go into the NLP for a second. It's programmed by parents or your teachers or a coach or a friend or whoever. So it already has a determined programming that will tell you, oh, you can't do that. It's unachievable.
Yeah.
Where's that come from? Who said that?
Yes.
If it wasn't achievable, how are there like hundreds of millions of millionaires in the world?
Yes.
The way you communicate to yourself
Yeah.
and identifying where did that come from. Like money doesn't grow on trees. No,
Yeah.
it doesn't. But it grows somewhere, and I'm going to go find where it is and pick it off that. So does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it's like you could have said, oh, well, there's Krispy Kremes and there's...
Of course.
You
And
know,
I did.
Like, oh, geez, no, there's bakeries in it. You know, every bloody bakery sells donuts, and you found your niche and you went for it and you've created something extraordinary.
People will tell you their fear.
Yeah.
People will say to you, when I told people I was opening up a donut shop,
Yeah.
they would say to me, you're crazy. No,
I think I said it to you at some stage.
crazy. I had the numbers. I had the data.
Yeah.
And my assumption wasn't an assumption anymore. It was getting proved that it was correct. But people that tell you that you're crazy, what they're actually saying is that they're so afraid, and that's such a crazy idea for them.
Yeah.
They're telling you their fear.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's fine. But you got to recognize that because you can be influenced. And sometimes there's common sense. They're like, hey, look for a sunset and you're running east. And they're like, hey, you're not going to find a sunset running east. You're like, yes, I am. Why? Because I think I am. And no.
Yeah.
Sunsets are west. So it's got to be some common sense. But most of the time, people are trying to convince you of the things that they're afraid of to keep them comfortable because you're making them uncomfortable.
Yeah,
and I don't like that.
Yeah, and you probably see it a lot if you look at history. You know, all the big scientists in the old days, they had their own ideas and people's mindset was just different. What do you mean the earth is round and we're rotating around the sun? You know, the earth is flat and that's it.
Yeah, like Galileo got
Yeah.
pretty much, I think he got pretty certain he got locked up because everyone thought he was crazy. And now if you think the opposite, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just making people uncomfortable. That's all. It really is. And it's just like the potential for you to fail makes them uncomfortable because that's what they would feel if they were doing it. And so they need to tell you that. And it's wrapped up in that's not going to work or that's stupid or
it's a bit
whatever.
like, no, I can't do it.
And I've done it myself to other people
Yeah.
unknowingly, and now I don't. But
I always wanted to start a donut shop, but nah, Dave, yours is not going to work because I'm feeling, oh, geez, I actually wanted to do it myself.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Like I remember when I landed in New York to visit some donut shops actually and to have a look around. And I remember walking up one of 51st Street and I was looking around and there was so many people, there was so much going on that I thought to myself, there is so much abundance in this world.
Yes.
There is so much opportunity. Never again am I going to limit myself by saying there are too many donut shops or there's too many of this or there's too many podcasts. There are enough people in the world and enough opportunity and enough abundance for you to do whatever the thing is that you want to do.
And enough niche markets, yeah.
Heaps, absolutely. A 45-year-old man and you wanted to wear pink tutus and play chess on a Tuesday, you're going to find a dozen people that want to do that. Promise you.
Yeah, right.
There are people out there that want to do the exact same thing as you or buy the thing that you want to sell.
Yeah, you're right, Dave. Always so full of wisdom, man. Just to step a little bit into your story, just give us a quick rundown of it. Obviously, I hope you don't mind me mentioning it, but you experienced homelessness at some stage and anxiety, and you're understanding the resilience and the determination that you require to overcome this kind of adversities. Now, have you got any advice? How do you actually call on this experience to apply into your social and business challenges every day?
Oh, look, everybody's got a past, some hard times. I had my fair share of those.
Yeah.
Coupled with, some traumatic events that happened early on in my life. And I had some good people around me, by the way, some really good people around me. Definitely helped me.
Good neighbours as well.
Yeah, along the journey. Yeah, some South African neighbours along the journey. But homelessness was a very short-term thing for me, but it was definitely something real. I had nowhere to live. I had a car and I slept in my car. Yeah, it was rock bottom. And at the time, not that I fully recognised it because I was trying to stay so distracted, but I had incredible debilitating anxiety and that just kept growing and growing and it doesn't go away just by ignoring it and trying to distract yourself. Eventually I had to deal with that and eventually I got myself out of homelessness and met some incredible people, including my wife, if not the biggest influence in
she's a trooper,
She's fantastic. She's an incredibly strong woman, incredibly measured and has taught me what love is, I guess, like what it really is without an agenda. Like there was no transaction. It was just like, hey, here's some love, take it.
Unconditional.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I hadn't really experienced, I can't say I hadn't experienced that, but it wasn't that authentic.
Yeah.
And it was quite foreign. She definitely helped me through my anxiety battle for sure. My mother suffered with bipolar disorder and my father, he had committed suicide when I was quite a young boy. And my stepfather, he was just doing the best that he could in the situation with my mum with mental illness. It just made me determined actually because I'd seen what happens if you don't deal with it. I've seen those roads travelled and what happens. And I was so determined to not deal with it. So I went looking and I found help. Yes. And many rivers lead to the same ocean. And what I found helped me. And it helped me so much that it got me out of the constant drone of anxiety. And when I stacked on that, the actual real me, the person who I am, bubbled to the surface. That's when I went into all the things that I'm doing now with confidence.
And you do a lot.
I do.
You're running the best donut shop in South Australia. Well, I reckon it should be Australia or actually the world for that matter. You're an NLP coach, you're a dedicated husband, dad of 3 young children, and you also advocate men's mental health. You love your spiritual studies as well. David, I don't really want to swear on the show. It's not Joe Rogan. How the F do you do it all, mate?
Here's the resource that we all have.
Yeah.
Is time.
Yeah.
And it's limited. We all get to choose what we do with our time.
Yeah.
I'm not exceptional at it yet, but I'm getting much, much better at allocating what I have and want to do and what I have to give to this world to the time that I've got. We have 24 hours in a day. 7 to 8 of those are sleep, depending on you and how much sleep you need. Some need 6, some need 8, some need 9, whatever. Yeah. Exercise is very important. And I get up very early and make sure that I exercise every day. Being mindful, just sitting with yourself and being grateful, either just speaking it out loud or you write it down. Just recognizing how blessed and lucky you are, because there are people in this world that are born into environments that aren't as blessed and lucky as yours.
Exactly, yes.
I mean, the fact that I can see you right now, my eyes work, The fact that I can walk. Sometimes until those things are taken from you, you don't even think about them. So taking time to do that, then just going through a hierarchy of what's important in your life and making sure you make time for those things. Because I guarantee you, when you allocate your time purposely and you have that in your mind will go to bat for you and stand guard at that time. If you have a full plate, your mind will guard that. And if it's very well thought out about how you're going to spend your time, then you'll do everything with purpose. You won't waste time. And it's a finite resource. This is peculiar, but I did a bit of a calculation the other day of how much time I have left if I live to average age now of 81. And I subtracted sleep from that. So active hours that I'll be awake. And it was 230-something thousand hours, 233,800 and something hours.
So it's in the thousands, not in the millions.
No. And I'm 41, more than half of that's gone. If I'm lucky enough to live to the average age, if I get bonus, then bonus. If I get less, then that's less.
Yeah.
No one knows. But it's a finite resource. And when you actually realize how much time you don't have, gee, are you defensive of it? If someone asks you to do something that's meaningless or just basically unloading something that they want you to do because they don't want to do it themselves. I'm not talking about helping people out. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
but overloading your time and wasting your time. If someone wastes my time, it is so offensive to me because it's such a limited resource. And an hour away from my kids or my wife or being grateful or just experiencing the world on a mundane bullshit thing that someone asked me to do that I want to do, then you quickly learn how to say no.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So I have a full plate, but that's on purpose. And I'm actually taking some of that stuff out of my schedule now. I need more time to myself and allocation of that. I've actually got a spreadsheet of my time.
Well, you're not a nerd because I bump into you at the breweries and the wineries and, always having fun with your mates, your family. So you still got time for that as well. You're truly living.
When you have time allocated for your family and you know the other shit's going to get dealt with in another time slot, your mind leaves you alone. It doesn't steal that time. And when you're having a social fun with your friends, it doesn't say, hey, you should be working on this. You need to do that.
Yes.
No, because it might say that, but your response is, hey, I've got that time. I've got 2 hours this afternoon allocated for that. That's going to happen. Stuff pops up and it takes away. Like there's unexpected. It's not fully controlled. Like you can't control everything and nor should you. But what I'm saying is that if you have it all planned out as much as you can to the best of your ability, then you'll enjoy everything that you do because you know the other stuff's going to get dealt with in the time that it's supposed to be dealt with.
Dave, I wish we had more time, man, for this podcast. Your presence here was electric and inspiring. I love your raw insights. You got such unique perspectives, man. I see you really live your life in a big way. Thanks, man. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been an honor and
really appreciate it.
Yeah, if it helps somebody to get an outcome that they want or clarify something, or even if someone's struggling with some anxiety and they know that it's possible to find a way out, then great.
All of you out there living in the Barossa or your regional South Australia, come to Nanda, or you always want to experience a great wine region in Australia, come to the Barossa, come to Dave's shop, and you're going to experience something very, very close to heaven. I'm not talking about a wine, I'm talking his donuts. It's extraordinary. Thanks, mate.
Oh, you're welcome, and thanks very much for having me, Johan.
So, each week, I'm going to have a numeric on the show. Now, a lot of you might ask, what is a numeric? Well, a numeric is actually a limerick. It's just got a number connotation to it. And today's numeric is: Dave begin each day with his special dough. With a big smile his vision grow. Working to a bigger life for his people, his kids and his beautiful wife. What is vital are passion and numbers, as we all should know. And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining me, and I hope today's session was valuable and you feel inspired to take action in your business. Remember, business success is about more than just numbers. It's about passion, determination, and a relentless drive to pursue your dreams through the help of numbers. So keep pushing forward, learning and striving for a bigger life in your business. If you found this podcast valuable, be sure to subscribe. Follow us on socials and leave a review if you enjoyed today's episode. And one last thing, if you want access to additional resources that will help you fast track your cash flow and financial freedom, visit yournumberman.com.au. Until next time, this is Johan Zanik, your number man, signing off. Thanks again.